Good morning. It's Wednesday, June the 3rd. And as we start, the couple of housekeeping issues we need to take care of. First off, later this week, I believe, you will receive by email, if you have an email address registered with the church, a survey dealing with the search for a new parish rector. This survey will ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us something how you respond to the parish, and some comments and thoughts on what you would like to see in the next rector. Strengths, weaknesses, gifts, talents, all those things that go into making a rector. And we hope you'll fill this out and then return it back to the church by email. If there's more than one member of the congregation in your household using the same email address, feel free to copy this, print off your own copy, fill it out by hand, and mail it back to the Vera at the church office. Or ask Vera to email you another one by email that somebody else in the congregation in your family can fill out and send back. We will not encourage you to ask to have that done 10 times so you can fill out the review that many times. That's cheating. Don't do that. So we hope you'll take care of that. And we held off a bit on this, so it would be unique and you wouldn't confuse it with the last survey we had on reopening. Speaking of reopening, that's going to happen on Sunday, June the 14th, a week from this Sunday. One service on Sunday morning at 10:30 and another service on Wednesday at noon. The service on Sunday will be Rite 2. The service on Wednesday will be Rite 1. We ask you to phone ahead and kind of make a reservation for this because seating is limited. The diocese says, the state says, we can have only up to 45 people total in the church for these services, which includes me and acolytes and musicians or anything else that's there. So let us know if you're coming. Also, the Bishop of Kansas wants us to wear face masks and maintain social distancing. So you'll find every other pew in the church is reserved, blocked off. Now, in the open pews, family units can sit together, of course, but if you have a family unit and then somebody else, make sure there's 6 feet of space between you. Now, I don't think that we're going to get in and mark off 6-foot sections on the pews. I think we can figure out about what 6 feet is. If you want to know what 6 feet 2 inches looks like, just take a look at me, turn me sideways, and imagine me lying there and then spread out. That'll give you a close approximation. So we look forward to getting back to that. We could use a little help on these. We're looking for some people to help serve as ushers for these services. We're looking for, right now, volunteers from the vestry to say, okay, I will be the vestry person of the day or the week at these services and pick some and call Vera and let her know so that we will have these available. Again, there will be no music except instrumental music on Sunday, no music at all on Wednesday. Bulletins will be a one-page bulletin with everything else. You will not find prayer books or hymnals in the pews, and this is what we'll use for a while. You probably are not going to see printed lessons. So we would ask you, as they did for centuries in the church, to sit back and listen to the lessons as they are read. Pay attention to the spoken word. Hear what's being said. And allow that to percolate in your soul and spirit. The psalm, which will be recited back and forth or said in unison in some way, will be included in an insert along with announcements and things like that. Offering plates will be on a table at the back of the center aisle. So you can put your gifts and offerings to the Lord in that when you come to the service. You will find a number of hand sanitizer stations, and I think one will probably be right in the middle of the center aisle, which you're encouraged to use coming and going from communion, if you wish. There'll be another one probably as you come through the main doors of the church in the narthex, and then there are several on the walls around the building. So make frequent use of those as well. So it's new, it's different. We're working on best practices and trying to figure it out as we go along. But it's a beginning. And I, for one, will be glad to be getting back into community with people because I think that is at its heart what we are called to be, a community people present with each other. We could see each other in online meetings. We can see each other in virtual worship. But that is not the same as that our presence with each other there. So I'm looking forward to getting our presence back together again, where we can be we may not be hugging yet or shaking hands at the exchange of the peace, but we will be in each other's presence. So I look forward to seeing many of you on Sundays and Wednesdays now in the near future. Today on the liturgical calendar, we celebrate the martyrs of Uganda. And I guess historically, there are two sets of martyrs of Uganda. The first set being in 1886, where a Ugandan king and his family and many other Christians were burned to death for refusing to renounce Christianity. And so then that spread to the martyrdom of many Anglican and Roman Catholic Christians, laity and clergy included. But Christianity refused to be wiped out. Christians were willing to stand up for their faith and to say, this is what I believe, and I cannot renounce my belief in God. And we're told that many of these martyrs, as an example of their faith, marched to their death singing hymns of praise and faith, and became examples to future Christians. Anti-Christian sentiment rose up again in the 1970s under the rule of the dictator Idi Amin in Uganda. And again, Christians were arrested and executed and cruelly treated and humanely treated. The young, talented Archbishop Johnny Luwum, the Anglican Archbishop of Uganda, is said to have been murdered in person by Idi Amin for his faith. And yet we know today that this did not quench the fires of Christianity or the Christian faith in Uganda. As a matter of fact, they came back and burned ever brighter. And realize we know now that sub-Saharan Africa is the leading area for Christian growth in the world, and especially in the Anglican Church. Never forget that the Worldwide Anglican Church is basically a black church. It's an African church. That's where the most members are. But it has grown out of the seeds of the martyrs, as I think St. Tertullian commented on. I say this because, you and I are not called to be martyrs of the faith in the same way that the men and women of Uganda, both in 1886 and in the 1970s, were called to be. But nevertheless, we are called to proclaim our faith in good times and in bad. We are called to be able to stand up and say, I'm a Christian. This is what I believe. And to say that in the face of mounting opposition sometimes. We have watched the last few nights of rioting around the country because of the death of George in Minneapolis. And we have seen the responses of what started out to be quiet, peaceful marches and demonstrations, and for the most part, they are. But there are times that people go beyond that, and that's where we get into the looting and the destruction and injuring innocent people. And I think this takes place on both sides of the table. And there comes a point where we have to stand up and say, we cannot abide this sort of treatment. We have to stand up and say, this is not what we believe Jesus taught us. And if we are going to follow Jesus, then there must be, as St. Paul says, a more excellent way. So today I hope that we will hold in our thoughts the martyrs of Uganda, who on this day in 1886 and in the days of 1970 gave up their life for their faith. They gave up their lives to say Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. Who are willing to, even in the face of persecution and injury and harm, say, this is, as Martin Luther said, this is where I stand, I can do no other. And so maybe in our own small way, we can find ways to say to the world and to those around us, I am a Christian. This is what I believe. This is what I think Jesus has called us to be and do. Remembering that part of our baptismal creed is to respect the dignity of every human being. We can do that in great ways. We can do that in small, everyday ways, which I think sometimes carry a great message as well. It is treating all that we encounter as men and women who bear the image of Christ in them as well, as we do. Men and women who are like us. They simply want to get on in the world. They would like to have lives filled with love and productivity. I think they would like to live in peace and harmony with their neighbors. And we have to say, so do we. How do we make that happen? So, going forward, today, tomorrow, until the streets are quiet again, how are we going to make the love of God known to people? How are we going to say to someone else, we are brothers and sisters? We may not always agree on everything. We may squabble over things. But we are brothers and sisters. And as such, each of us is worthy of respect and dignity and equality. Of treating, going back to the simplicity of the golden rule, of treating somebody else, regardless of their skin color, their economic situation, their religion, their orientation, whatever it is. But going back to the golden rule and saying to those people, I hope I can treat you the way I would want to be treated. And hope you will treat me as you would want to be treated. These are times that call us to examine the levels of our faith. What are we willing to do in the name of Jesus? What are we willing to proclaim in the name of Jesus? How far are we willing to march with Jesus? Questions we ought to wrestle with and deal with. And even after the protesters leave the streets, even after they've cleaned up the debris, opened up the buildings, business comes back, we still need to keep asking ourselves, what can we do, either in great programs or programs of one-on-one? What can we do to try to prevent this from ever happening again? I know it's an uphill battle. And you and I may not achieve all that much success. But that does not excuse us from at least trying. Just small ways. Be nice to each other. Say kind words to each other. Respect one another. It's not rocket science. But it's what Jesus asked us to do. Have a great day.